Well, it is official. Avengers Endgame is the highest grossing movie of all time, passing both Titanic and Avatar. Now, a week before Avengers Endgame was released in theaters, the movie essay channel Nando V Movies assembled a group of YouTubers to create the most epic movie essay collaboration on the most epic cinematic achievement of all time, the MCU. So as part of this ongoing analysis of the individual scenes that have made the Marvel Cinematic Universe great, we're going to be looking at one marvelous scene from Iron Man 3 and the lessons that could have been learned from it to make the film one of the most memorable, acclaimed superhero movies of all time. So let's begin with
Lesson number 1.
Don't make promises with no intention of keeping them. Now, Iron Man 3 was doomed in the minds and hearts of numerous fans from the first teaser. They made a contract, a promise with the audience to deliver the greatest, most intimidating villain of the MCU. Yet they had, from the beginning, no intention of keeping that promise. Now, although you could argue that this is a failing on the part of the marketing, and that may very well be the case, the movie itself is, in fact, just as culpable in perpetuating this deceit, this idea that it contains one of the greatest, most memorable villains we've ever seen.
Here's a little holiday greeting I've been wanting to send to the Mandarin. I just didn't know how to phrase it until now. My name is Tony Stark, and I'm not afraid of you.
Now think back to well-developed villains in other films. The Dark Knight began with the promise of a crazed lunatic achieving his goals not through physical strength, but through impeccable planning and foresight, along with his capacity for manipulation. And that is exactly what we got all the way through to the end of the movie. Man of Steel began with the promise of a patriotic, militaristic man willing to do whatever it takes to carry out his commission of saving the Kryptonian race. And that is exactly what we got by the end of the movie. Star Wars began with the promise of an intimidating, black-suited warrior seeking the destruction of anyone who opposed the Empire. And that is exactly what we got all the way through to the end of the movie. So what did Iron Man 3 give us? Well, it starts with the promise of an unpredictable terrorist trying to indoctrinate the world with his ideology.
And you'll never see me coming.
And it ends with a completely different character trying to make some money by selling weapons to a fearful world. Lesson number 2. A hero is only as strong as his villain. Now, a recurring occurrence in the MCU is having the protagonist develop superpowers, or amazing technology, and then having the antagonist develop the same powers or technology, followed by them going toe-to-toe in a punching match. Think Iron Man versus Warmonger, Iron Man versus Whiplash, Thor versus Loki, Captain America versus Red Skull, Thor versus Malekith, Captain America versus Bucky, Doctor Strange. Well, you get the idea. Now, Iron Man 3 had the potential to buck this tradition in the best way possible. And in a way, it did, in the sense that Iron Man does not have magma powers.
You breathe fire? Okay.
But then again, they are the exact same powers Pepper Potts ends up developing by the end of the movie. So even in that itself, it keeps with the exact same tradition. But imagine how much better Iron Man 3 could have been if it didn't just end as a superpowered fistfight. Imagine if the challenge Tony Stark had to face could not be solved with his suits. We could still see Tony solving problems without the armor, but not because it's broken and powered down, but rather because all of his technology and all of his weapons are worthless against a villain who plots so far ahead of him and acts so erratically. Then we could see Tony developing as a character by learning what it takes to defeat an enemy that is entirely different than the sorts of villains that he is used to facing. Lesson number 3. Strong trilogies end where they began. Now, do you remember where Iron Man was born? He was born in a cave in the custody of the Ten Rings, the same organization that is featured so prominently in Iron Man 3. In a way, even the writers knew that the opportunity to connect right back to the first movie was just too good to pass up. Yet they ultimately couldn't help themselves and chose to introduce a new villain with a contrived backstory.
Aldrich Killian, I'm a big fan of your work.
So rather than the organization that already had a history with Tony Stark, that he made it his life's goal to destroy, and that apparently he nearly succeeded in doing so, they chose a villain who was angry that Tony Stark stood him up, choosing a one-night stand with this girl over an evening of talking work with this guy. What a wasted opportunity to end a trilogy right where it began, to make it seem like they had planned these events out from the very beginning. Lesson number 4. Carry the themes through each movie. In Iron Man 1, Tony Stark had to achieve 2 distinct goals. He had to save his life, and he had to save the world. In Iron Man 2, you could argue that he has to deal with the ramifications of his effort to save his life. The Iron Man suit that he developed to escape imprisonment started an arms race that became a threat to himself and those around him. Iron Man 3 could have concluded the series by showing the blowback Tony Stark had to deal with by saving the world. The terrorist organization that he did his best to hunt down and destroy, the Ten Rings, is back, and now he has to face the consequences of his actions from the first movie. So the question he'd have to face is, were his actions and the life course he set himself on in the first movie still worth it in the face of everything he has to deal with in Iron Man 3, including the loss of his life, or, even worse, the loss of the love of his life? Would Tony still be happy with everything that he accomplished in the first Iron Man movie if Pepper Potts died as a result of his actions? So what could Iron Man 3 have been if they applied the lessons learned from this one marvelous scene? Well, that is a topic for a future video. If you'd like to see that video when it's released, subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to see more videos in this collaboration, check out the link in the description below. If you'd like to see my other content, check me out on the web at qjmartin.org and follow me on Twitter at qjmartin_author. If you'd like to collaborate with me, please message me at qj@qjmartin.org. And of course, thank you for watching.